Okay, we will now call the meeting of the Parks Commission to order. Do we wear masks when we're up here, or when we're talking, or how does? Okay, and we need to establish a quorum, and so those present, there are 4 members of the commission that are present, and that is a quorum. And we have a guest tonight of Travis Neal, who will be joining us as a full member once officially appointed by the City Council. Are there any written communications? No, Maxine?
Yes, we do have one written communication. Dawn, if you could open that for us. This is an email we received from Sherry Klein. She's a resident of Ladue and wanted to send us a note to share with us how much she enjoys Stacy Park with her family and her 2 dogs. They live in Ladue, and she says they have to travel to find good dog walking areas. And of all the area parks they walk in, Stacy is the top of the list. And then she gives us a list why. It's well kept without being fussy. There's a diversity of landscape. She loves the community activities, and she especially enjoys the new walking trail. Her favorite area is around the pond. And she really was fascinated to see how the prairie burn enhanced the prairie this year and the growth of the native plants. And she feels that prairie reconstruction is terrific. And then she also thinks that the diversity of the people is another great thing. So many ages, cultures, and races, and everyone is friendly and wears a smile. So she wanted to send kudos to the staff and the residents, and we thought it was very nice that she wrote that letter. So we shared this with the staff and the City Council and the Park Commission, and then we wrote back to her and thanked her very much for letting us know.
Hey, thank you. Next item on the agenda is hearing from citizens. I do not see, there's no one present in the meeting. I do not see any attendees online. So we will dispense with that. The minutes of the previous meeting. Don, could you put those up? This would have been the meeting in June. And are there any updates or any corrections that need to be made? If not, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving
Motion.
a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion that we accept the minutes as written and in the record. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Okay, so let's move on to the director's report. Beverly?
Great. This evening, the director's report is going to be given to you by Assistant Director Don LaChance. He wrote this report for the July meeting, and then we have an addendum for tonight's meeting for August. Oh, I see what you're saying. No microphone. All right, well, I'll give the report on Don's behalf. So we wanted to, we were awaiting a new hire for the sports specialist position. And since the writing of this, that person actually declined the position. And so we still have a vacancy, and we've elected not to fill it. Our new recreation coordinator, Corey Shovik, is doing remarkably well. He is really taking initiative, and Dawn is helping him. So we don't want to try and bring someone on in the midst of soccer. We do have an amazing horticultural assistant, however. Cody Stewart started with us on June 28th. He is going to be entering the horticultural program at St. Louis Community College of Merrimack. So he has been terrific, working 40 hours a week. and just doing an amazing job. We're very fortunate to have him. We had soccer league camp that went really well with Sporting STL. And then we are about to start our soccer league. The practices have begun, and actually Dawn and Corey were out marking all the fields today. We have got the goals up, so it's looking great out there. Then we also wanted to let you know in June that we had a new camp that we were launching this year. That's a collaboration between all the city departments. It was it started out with the police department, brought a suggestion to add a camp, and we tacked it on to the end of the camp season. So it ran the first week of August, and we didn't know how signups would go because it was a brand new camp, kind of an interesting topic of learning behind the scenes of a municipality, and it sold out. So it was terrific. It was an all-day camp, and the first 2 days the kids spent with the police department. They spent a day with Public Works, a day at the fire department, and then they also had some day with the Parks and Rec department, and did some actual municipal work in the council chamber where they had to help decide what to do with a piece of property that the city owns. So it was a remarkable experience. They did a lot of physics experiments out at the Public Works yard. They did watermelon drops from the bucket truck. Apparently that was a huge hit. And then in the police department, they were sworn in as junior officers, and they arrested Dawn, which was pretty exciting. But they also got to meet canines that work in the which canines? Bomb sniffing canines. I apologize. And then you got to use the heat sensing apparatus in the fire department to figure out if there's someone in a smoky room, and they learned how to use fire extinguishers. They did bicycle safety, its skills, and it was. And then in the parks department, they pulled weeds. They learned how to identify poison ivy and what to do if you are exposed to it before and after. So it was a remarkable camp, and we look forward to offering it again.
How many were in?
Pardon me?
How many were in the camp?
24. Yeah. They were aged, I believe, 8 to 11. No. 6 to 11. 6 to 11. I was in California. What do I know? We also we've had 3 significant storms over the last month and a half, and we've got some pictures in here of the first storm, but during each storm, we've had some significant trees fall in our parks and along the pathways. Most of them have had to be taken down 100%. Some we did some pruning on them. And then we are now on the lookout. Some of these trees that are coming down are actually, one, thankfully, was one that was slated for removal for the park renovations. The other thing we're doing is we're looking for trees as they come down with specific trunk circumference or diameter and of specific species, and we will be holding on to those and cutting them into specific lengths, and they will be used for the nature playground at Irvside, which is pretty exciting. We're also searching for a really nice piece to be our mantle in the new community center. So we really want something from our parks instead of just getting chipped up to really be something that we can use there. So we're hoping we'll find a very beautiful artistic piece or one that we can plane and be really nice for the new mantle, maybe with a live edge. So we've got our eyes out for that. Dawn, do you have any idea how many trees came down? At least 8. I think it was about 8. Yeah.
And how do you
Yeah.
budget for that? Does that blow the budget, or does it?
Well, we budget a significant amount for tree care every year, about $15,000. However, for things like storms, we have to do it no matter what's budgeted. And so it comes out of our budget, and we either have savings somewhere else, or sometimes the city council, if it's really large, the council appropriates emergency funds for us. So for example, I think about 4 years ago, remember we had that wind shear event that came through all of it. It spread from Ladue up through Stacy Park and through down the pathway, and it hit many homes, and Stacy Park lost 2 giant trees, and then many street trees were damaged. And the budget, the bill for that for cleanup citywide was about $30,000. So it's it can be quite significant.
And on this,
Jim, I'm sorry. I was wondering if I could add to that.
Sure.
Right, so also in addition to that, I know that Brian and Cody and myself, we cleared a couple of trees that had fallen over the path at Warson.
Yes.
One took all morning to do, and it took a variety of creative methods. But the reason I bring it up for all of you is that Don has also mentioned this too, the possibility of forming a rapid response team, because it's more than, so like the big trees, yeah, we can't take, you need a professional to come in with equipment, but there were so many limbs, there's so many things that are just blocking the way that just need to be cleared. And it was so funny because residents are on it, right? So it happens, it's like an hour after the storm, you're getting calls already. And as we were entering to take down this large tree, we had, 2 people come up and say, hey, did you know there's a tree down in the, yes, we know, we're getting to it. At some point in the meeting, maybe Don, you could maybe talk more about that, because I think it's a really interesting idea. And I think there would be people that would be interested in that. Obviously not to do the big stuff,
Right.
but to take care of all those limbs and other kinds of things that take up staff time that citizens who are volunteering could take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And there are similar programs out there, CERT training. I don't know if they did CERT training here ever, which is Citizens Emergency Response Teams. Sometimes, so in the city I used to work for, we had it for post earthquakes. But here we could definitely do something like that for around storms. And I think it's a great idea. And I think people that do Weed Warriors or Trail Team or all the other things probably would be really interested in that. So I think that's terrific. Yeah, absolutely. We also had power knocked out to the Stacy Pavilion more than once by trees. And Ameren, as we all know, Ameren was really swamped, but they got the power back on at Stacy remarkably quickly. The second one, I think actually it wasn't a park tree that hit it. The first one, it was a park tree. So in situations like that, we call anybody that has the pavilion reserved, we give them a heads up about it, and we're happy to refund them if it impacts them. But this time around, I don't think we had any refund. I don't think we issued any refunds. Everybody was pretty happy to go out there and have their party anyway. So that was really nice. The other thing that on the tree that Ed was talking about, it fell, we had a large tree, it fell on one of the new hiking trails. So rather than bringing in heavy machinery and pulling it up and ripping up all the native plantings in the hiking trail, they actually cut it up, and parts of it will actually stay there as part of the native landscape and help with the biodiversity and decay into the forest and part of our healthy forest management. So I'm really happy we're able to do that, because that really helps our woodlands be much closer to the natural occurring and makes them healthier in the long run. So that's really good. Okay, Dawn, do you want to go to the next attachment that has the camp photos? We have just a series of summer camp snapshots for you. So you can see Water Day with the fire department. Then you can also, that's from Camp O. But then on the right, you see the kids that were learning how to use their fire extinguishers and putting out fires on that little row of houses there, which is really cute. Down the second picture from the right on the bottom row is everybody out at Public Works. And sadly, we don't have the picture of the watermelon drop, but I believe that may be in the city newsletter, maybe coming to that. So, and then they did, campers also this summer did a fundraiser for the Wildlife Rescue Center and collected a whole bunch of supplies, which was really great. They did that during Animal Week, and they brought several hundred pounds of supplies to the Wildlife Rescue Center, and I think it was about $300 in cash donations. That was really nice. And then the bottom right-hand corner is Pajama Day. Themes are really, really exciting at summer camp. Okay, and I think is that everything on the director's report? Great.
Did you say there was an addendum to that?
That
or-
was the photographs.
Okay, that was.
Yeah,
photos.
so
Okay.
we had about 200 kids total in camp, and we had 7 camps. And in addition, well, we had Camp O that went for 8 weeks, but then we also had Mad Science Camp, we had several athletic camps, and then we had municipals.
And how did that compare with budget? How many were
Well,
you budgeting for?
well, we were hoping to exceed our numbers from last year and we did. Because with the pandemic, we're still not at our obviously pre-COVID numbers, but we exceeded last year, so that was great. And we had waiting lists for many of the weeks, which was wonderful.
And what are the, was the 2019?
Oh, I think off the top of my
Mm.
head, it would probably closer to 400.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Before we leave this agenda item, you had future important dates. Tomorrow, or any of these dates, do you need any commissioner assistance or? help?
Those were from the June. So we've got future important dates again, on the agenda that shouldn't
Okay.
have been on there. I apologize. That
Thank
was
you.
left over from June. But thank you.
Any other questions for Beverly? Next on the agenda is city council report. Maxine, what's going on? in your-
Good evening. Welcome to Travis. We'll have to formally meet. We've waved across down the street. As you see, Olive Street Road is very busy, the Olive Corridor, and from 170 all the way throughout Olive, things are going great. And I'm not sure, but people know that Firestone put their sign up. I believe that the what do they call it? Olivet Crossing? Okay. They've changed the names, so I get confused. Olivet Crossing at Olive and 170, they're getting ready. They're waiting. The next step is Ameren, putting the lines underground and removing the poles. That will be a big job. And the old city hall is looking great. And they're putting in the foundation formations at where the plantation is going to be, where Ponderosa used to be. Not the
Plant
plantation,
Haven.
Plant Haven. I've had a very long day at work and I'm sorry I was late. And then since our last meeting, Opus was voted that they are going to begin their project, and that is behind CVS off of Alice and down Hilltop. It's going to be an apartment complex as well. And a lot of time we spend talking about parks as well. So you're the hot topic for us. So, are there any questions for me?
Sure. The Hardee's site, it looks like right next to Dobbs. Is
Yes.
that, did you mention that?
No, there's some discussion going on with that.
So that is no longer happening the way it was originally,
Um,
the storage.
At this
center.
point in time, it still will be the storage. There is just some delays in that, and so there's some discussion going on. And hopefully by the next meeting, I'll be able to give you an update on that.
Okay. And were you able to learn anything about the road that connects city, the city center to Dealman, right here, that goes through the wooded area? It's what the hope is for that, or what that's going to be?
Yeah, are we talking about, yeah, I did follow up on that. I thought someone reached out to you to get back to you on that. They did not. So you're talking about when you get just past Indian Meadows.
Right, I'm talking about where the sidewalk ends, and
Okay.
then the kind of loose gravel
That,
roadway that goes all the way to the end.
on this side, that is, that is not our, the grant did not go past that at this point in time. So I will have to get more information on that. I thought you were going to get a phone call about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, because Bruce was the one that kind of created that, I believe,
Yeah.
right? The
Right.
Public Works area.
Right.
I didn't know if that was, the intention was that it was temporary for the construction that was happening behind there, where they recently put up the trees, or if that is meant to then become a continuation or a way, because I've walked it a couple times and it's an ankle buster.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's not very
At this point in
pleasant.
time, we do not have a grant for that part of the sidewalk to continue from there.
Yeah, but the long range vision is to have that connect and to connect into Centennial Greenway as it crosses further up into Dealman. That's the long range plan.
But if you remember, we had two grants for Dealman. And the one was from Old Bonham down the hill up to here to Olive. And then the other one that went from from Old Bonham that went south. And that one they just completed.
Yeah. So
Okay, so-
it's on the plans. We don't have funding for it yet.
Right, so but the hope is to have it be a paved path as opposed to a
Correct.
wood chip path or some other.
Correct.
Yeah, so sometimes when we get those grants, it's like a 3-year process.
Thank you, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
but yeah, definitely Bruce has his eye on that. Yeah, for sure.
It seemed to me that I don't know whether it's in council minutes or whatever, that there was
A grant
there
for
was a grant-
sidewalks.
a
Yeah, so
grant-
there,
a grant for that. There's been a proposal. for
there's a
that to-
proposal for that. I don't think that hasn't been formalized yet, but there
No.
was a CDBG grant that will connect, that will put in a new sidewalk over in the Hilltop neighborhood
Right.
where they don't currently have sidewalks, and it'll tie into that Opus project, and that'll be ADA accessible
And
because
that was at our
area-
last.
that was
council
on the
meeting.
last
Yeah,
council meeting.
okay,
Yeah.
got them confused.
That's when you were like the person in the,
I
you were the
kept
person in the in the chamber that kept moving chairs so that
Right.
you could be seen in
in
different,
different camera angles.
yeah. Since you were the only one.
You were the only person at the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
So for the public hearing, he had to keep changing seats.
Okay, any other questions for Maxine? Okay, Beverly,
Okay.
thank you. Beverly, can you talk
Yes.
about master plan?
Yes, we have exciting things have been happening. So Dawn, if you could click that. I've updated the timeline for you to kind of see where we are. Tomorrow at 2:00, our general contractors will submit their bids for building the new community center in Warson Park. We are, as I say, I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, we know that there's been construction impacts from COVID, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to be excellent news. We just wait and see what happens. We believe that 5 contractors are going to submit bids. We had about 8 contractors come to the pre-bid meeting. And many of them have been asking questions of the project manager, which leads us to think that they are truly going to submit bids. So I'm very excited for that. Then the team will review those bids and vet them and check references. And then a recommendation will go to the city council on August 31st to select a general contractor. So fingers crossed and arms crossed and legs crossed. And I can't wait. Very, very nervous, but very excited.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Does the city have any stipulations or requirements for minority and women-owned businesses in the bid process?
The city council is actually working on a policy for that right now. I don't think it will be ready in time for this. However, we currently do have minority-owned architectural firm that designed the community center. And we have a women-owned business that is the landscape architect. And we also have a woman-owned business that is the AV vendor. So we were fortunate to have that coming in, but I don't believe we have that requirement for this bid package, but I know that it's on the council work plan to create that. Maxine, do you have an update on that?
Yeah, as I recall, at the pre-bid meeting, I heard Katie specifically mention minority and women-owned
Okay.
in terms of what they had to do with their subs.
Okay. Oh, so
So-
they did put
so
stipulations for
there-
the
so there's-
subcontractors.
I believe there's
Okay.
stipulations in the.
There's stipulations for both the Opus contract and with Greg Yout, with Keat for the Olive 170 project. And those have like a percentage or an amount of labor and businesses that have to be utilized. And that is also one of the goals that we've added to our to the city council for this year, and something that we've also put money into the budget for getting a coordinator to work with us on on setting up our diversity policies. So that's a high priority for this upcoming year.
The Great Rivers Greenway project that goes through Indian Meadows will absolutely have the requirement on it because that is TAP. That's the Transportation Alternative Program grant, federal grant money, and the federal money has that requirement built into it. So that will happen for that section of the pathway as it goes through Indian Meadows Park.
Yeah, I would just offer the suggestion that going forward, the city just have a blanket requirement for any construction projects throughout the city, whether it's federal money or not.
Right. And that absolutely is what the council's working on right now. We can't put it into play without the council making it. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think it's there because I'm trying to remember the percentages, but though it's 5% on something and 25%.
Okay. Well, I'll
Mm.
find out and bring it back to the
Okay.
next meeting and the update. Okay, so we'll scroll down a little bit. So in the parks, Indian Meadows, Irvside Villa, and Stacy Parks are finalizing the schematic design phase. We are really, I would say we're about 80%, between 75 and 80% done with schematic design. Villa Park was identified as the best project for submission for a municipal park grant. Municipal park grants are grants that are issued through the Municipal Park Commission for St. Louis County. This is the governing body for the sales tax that goes to parks. So in the region, St. Louis City and County, and I think a portion of, I think it's part of the Tri-County, I could be wrong on that, but 50% of the funds of that sales tax go to fund Great Rivers Greenway. Then the next 30% goes to St. Louis County parks for parks in unincorporated areas that aren't represented by your municipality, and recreation programs through the county parks and recreation. Then the remaining tax money is allocated to the other municipalities in St. Louis County, and it's given out on an annual basis, and cities can apply. Cities have to apply to have that funding. And there is a criteria they go through to establish how much money a city is eligible for based on population. And Olivet has not applied for 10 years. So we do think that we're in pretty good shape to receive a grant as long as we turn in a well-crafted grant application. So in looking at the criteria, a lot of the things they're looking for, one, they want to make sure you've had a public process and you have a master plan for the project that you're submitting. And they also have criteria about when it's going to start and finish within the grant cycle, because they want something that's not going to drag out for several years since they give the money every year. So in looking at that and vetting that, Villa Park is the one that was identified as the best candidate for this grant cycle. And then the following year, we'd like to do another phase of Warson, but we couldn't do Warson now because it's just either it would be building too soon or too late for this cycle, but Villa really fits in that sweet spot. And also it's really easy to identify the projects because we have to show very clearly where the money is being spent, and then you have to show the billing and it has to match up. So the complexity we have at Indian Meadows with having Great Rivers Greenway in there and the TAP grant funding, and then our project going in, it would be very difficult to tease that out for the billing. Also, same thing about Warson too, because we're Great Rivers Greenway is reimbursing us for the Warson work too. So then that would be a further issue in there to try and figure out what went with what. So Villa is kind of the one that's the easiest. So we are submitting an application for a $370,000 grant there. Then
On that, can I?
Yes.
What is the timeframe?
the grant application is due in the next couple weeks, and then has to be completed pretty much next calendar year. So it needs
The
to-
whole entire project?
yeah, I think I'm saying that right. I'm looking at so many different calendars. I don't want to be wrong on that, but you can see the grant cycle. The Municipal Park Commission has a very nice website that kind of shows you and it'll show you all the previous projects that have been granted and how much money they've given out. So it's a very good resource. And then we've hired a grant writer to write it for us.
So that will be completed within the 2022 calendar year?
I believe so, yes.
And how is that line up with our master plan?
It
timeline?
lines up here because you see, we're going out to bid in the fall and mobilization in the winter. So you can see where we are right now. We're ending the design phase, schematic designs, the last piece of that before we start creating our construction documents and go out to bid this fall. Because that is on a separate big cycle than the community center and Warson Park.
I guess my question, I, this is it prioritizing the project for Villa, or is that where it was supposed to be?
No, that's where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
All the parks will still bid at the same time.
Okay,
But we also, Villa, we're not doing as much in there as we're doing in Irvside. And then at Indian Meadows, we have Great Rivers Greenway coming through there. That makes it just too complex. And then Warson is spread out over further years because the phasing of Warson will go further. So that's why we're going to ask for Warson the next cycle. Because that'll put it in the first phase 4 of Warson. It'll line up for the next grant cycle. So you all heard the public meeting for the park schematic designs was pushed to September 29th. We just didn't have a meaty enough things to show. And we also didn't have enough time to really do a good job of getting the word out. So we've pushed it to September 29th, and that will allow us to have more robust information for the public and allow us to publicize it a little more. The asbestos abatement was completed at the Parks House. The Parks crews will be moving all of the supplies and gear and equipment into the portable containers at Warson Park and probably in about 2 weeks' time or so. Is that right, Dawn? About 2 weeks or so. We've got the shipping containers coming and they will go on the parking lot closest to the community center. And then the parks crew themselves are moving into the stage, moving onto the stage to have their own room and to have their lockers and everything inside the community center. Because one of the first things they'll do once they mobilize is take that house down. And we really want to move them out now while the weather's good and it's not muddy, and it gives them more time because we know it's going to take longer than we think to get everything out of there. All-inclusive rec was selected for the playground components for Indian Meadows, Irvside Villa, and Indian Meadows, Irvside Villa, and the indoor playground at the new community center. The preliminary playground components will be reviewed by this commission during the design process. You'll see the different iterations of the parks and be able to provide feedback. Those of you that have been on the commission for a while, All-Inclusive Rec gave us a presentation several years ago. They were the company that came and presented how you can do parallel play and showed us the difference between parallel play and just ADA accessible playgrounds, what that really looked like. That's one thing they do. And they also represent several different playground manufacturers. So Jim and Ed were in on those interviews. So I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of share with you the process and how they participated representing the Park Commission.
Yeah, the city advertised, it's called an RFQ. And I believe that there were four organizations that responded to that. And there was, it was basically, there was a pretty open discussion as far as people were looking at, trying to figure out what we can, what best fit the ideas. And I think all-inclusive clearly was the group that best captured that we wanted it to be, well, one, within budget, two, that it is that it's an innovative. I mean, we didn't want a cookie cutter playgrounds. And they came up with some very exciting approaches to that. So to them. So I'm learning all the terms of playgrounds, post and deck, and then you've got nature play, and you've got a number of different things. And then what was most exciting was we got into a couple of things for the inside of the community center, and that's I don't want to steal any thunder on that one. but-
Okay, well,
but-
yeah,
but-
we'll
but
show you some
All-Inclusive
things, yeah.
Rec is helping us
Yeah.
with all of them. And I think as we look through it, we will have playgrounds that are enjoyable for the kids, but then also are not what you see in every other municipality in the area.
Thank you. As we get through the community center highlights, then I have pictures to show you of the renderings for the indoor playground. So we talked about general contractor bids are due tomorrow. Then also on that August 31st meeting, our project manager, Katie Ahold from Navigate Building Solutions, will provide her next big comprehensive update to the council with the timelines and the budget. And I encourage you all to attend that meeting or watch it online. And then the construction phasing plan for Warson Park was included in the general contractor bid. So I added that for you to see because I think it was one that we talked about in the past, and it was really hard for me, and I know for everyone, to kind of understand all the different phasing that was happening at Warson Park. So Dawn, if you could click on that attachment, and then we'll come back to this one for the indoor playground. This is our public meeting graphic. This will be going out into all the parks, and we'll have some yard signs around town as well. But Dawn, no, not this, the Warson Park phasing, the other one. There we go. So this is a really big PDF. It takes a little while to load, so thankfully we've looked at it before. But Dawn, if you could zoom in so it can show the phasing. So 1A is the first thing we anticipate the contractors will do. This was included in the general contractor bid documents so that they could understand how the project managers are envisioning how to do it. So phase 1A, we're anticipating will be the first thing that'll be started. And this is the looped ADA accessible pathway that goes around the existing ball fields there at Warson Park. So what this will do is this will allow anyone that has mobility issues or has a stroller or a bicycle with a little child can actually have something that doesn't exceed a 5% grade all the way around and get down to the new community center. Because those of you that walked in Warson Park, you know that it's very steep coming down from the community center, and then it's extremely steep once you get down to the lower field. And in no way, shape, or form does that meet ADA requirements. And it's actually a barrier for people to use it. So I'm pretty excited about that. That also creates a loop so that, remember, one of the drivers in the parks master plan that we really heard from the public is they wanted looped walking paths in all of the parks. So that really helps us achieve that here. Then 1B, which may happen at the same time as 1A, because it's still phase 1, will be completely demoing the park house. Because as you can see, you can kind of see in there the outline of the park house, but you can definitely see the Great Rivers Greenway coming through the corner of that. So in order for them to start the Greenway grading and construction, the house has to go. They'll be repairing the water line, bringing water to that site. There'll be a drinking fountain there along the trail. And then the vision item of the community gardens is up there, so that water service will also supply the community garden. Then if you zoom out a teeny bit, Dawn, you can see 2A is the community center itself, and 2B is the Centennial Greenway. So as soon as one has the park house demoed and they've started the grading for phase 1A, then they'll move into the grading of the site over there, because there is a lot of grading that has to happen before the construction can start. So for those of you that remember the old Saints, there is a 3-part tiered wall that comes down between the park house and the new community center site. That's being eliminated so that there's a lot of earth that has to be moved through there to smooth that out. And then phase 2C will then connect the 1A ADA walkway to the Greenway. So that's our nice transition in there. So this starts for you to see why we had to move soccer 100% to Stacy, because there will not be park access here. We will be closing this off because we don't want pedestrians in an active construction site. The hope is that 1A will finish and we'll be able to open that section of the park, and people will be able to use that pathway, use that loop, and be able to see the construction, but we'll have the fencing in that 2C area. So we're hoping that that gets done, and then that reopens that back up so that people can still enjoy the park during the construction. And then if you scroll down, you see phase 3, I apologize, is the maintenance facility. Originally, this was part of phase 1, but then we started hearing about the delays of the prefab steel. So that pushed this back a little bit. So what happens is, as soon as the contractor bid is awarded and they go into their mobilization stage, they'll be placing the order for this building, and it'll take that long for that material to arrive. Same thing for any metal component steel issues, steel items for the new community center. So it gives them time to order those supplies and have them arrive on time for the construction, which in prior to COVID, they would have been able to build the maintenance facility probably within 3 to 4 weeks of mobilization, but now we know we have to push it out to the spring. Phase 4 then will be much later. So once the community center is going to stay up, it's going to be used as a community center. The staff offices will stay in there. We'll still continue programs. Once we're able to move into the new building, then phase 4 will begin, and they'll tear down the old community center. That will take a little bit of time because there's so much abatement that has to happen in there of asbestos. And what's helping us, we think, is that they'll be, since they're taking down the whole building and not just a part of it, that it might make it a little bit easier, but we still anticipate that that is going to be a very costly line item. Then once that is completely down, then we'll be building the splash pad area. There's one small thing that'll happen prior to all of this. As soon as we get started, and they'll be putting in a new water meter pit in front of the community center. That's anticipated to probably start around the phase of 1A, but that may not be done by the general contractor. That may be done separately just based on timing. So that one, we're still not sure. Originally, that would have started in August by now, but it's just not happening now. So, but that'll be something that'll happen up there prior to the community center being torn down. Okay, that's a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer questions to the best of my ability.
Yeah, thanks for all that. It's really very informative. Overall, how do you see kind of we're still in this kind of pre-project phase? Where are we on our timeline? I know we've got our longitudinal plots there, but are we running to plan right now, to timeline? Are we running a little behind, a little ahead?
We're running to our timeline with about a 4-week delay because
Wow.
remember, we pulled the bid down. So we allowed more time because we put the bid back up. So
Gotcha.
right now we're looking at an official ground cutting in October, official groundbreaking in October instead of the end of September. So a little bit pushed there. But again, the work will start before that. When a groundbreaking ceremony is done, you guys probably remember here, there was a lot of earth moving, a lot of things happened before we had the official groundbreaking, because they want the site to be presentable and for you to actually see what's going on. We won't really have the groundbreaking with the first bulldozer in there. So it's a little bit more ceremonial. So we're looking for a date in October for that right now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then once the bids come back, the contractors have to include their timeline in that bid. We'll know a lot more about where we're slated. So when I updated the timeline, so Don, if you could go back to the previous sheet. So I updated the timeline to show where we are right now. I have not changed that December date, the completion date, because until we award the contract, we don't know if that's right or if it'll actually be January. So I'm just leaving that alone until we have more information. But it could be it changes.
Great. An interesting overlay at some point would be planned versus actual.
Correct, correct.
um,
And that's, the timeline update will be that presentation Katie gives when we award the contract, because by then they'll know, once everything's vetted and the contractor's selected,
Yeah.
and then they have those tough conversations, then we'll be able to adjust this.
Great.
Yeah. With the phasing at Warsaw Park, along with all of our parks, there's a huge component in there that's tree protective fencing. There's also protective fencing that goes in for the wattles and the bands that go in to protect the storm drains. So we will have clear demarcated areas for the public, because we don't want people just, wandering into places where, they have, and they could possibly be injured. But we also want to really protect our trees. We're really hoping that we don't have any collateral damage on our trees from construction. So we're taking a careful look at that.
That was gonna be my question. Can you go back to that other image?
Sure.
Especially around phase 1A.
Yes.
It's encircled by trees.
It is.
And you said that's where all of the grading has to happen?
Well, there's minor grading there. It's much larger grading over by the community center. So the community center area, many of those trees are going to be removed because they aren't healthy to start with. As you go through there, you can see there's a lot of dead and dying trees in there. But on this side, we have some very good specimens that we will be doing a lot of protection in there. We will be losing one of the, maybe two of the trees right behind or right next to the dugout right there, right, the pathways going right through there. They are beautiful trees. However, they also have major thorns on them, and they're right by a ball field. So I'm sad to see them go, but on the other hand, they're not some of our really high value trees because they're smaller, and I'm trying to remember the name of them. They look like crab apples, but they're not crab apples, but they have really, really big thorns on them. Do you remember what those are, Ed?
Brian said the name, it just didn't stick, but
Yeah.
they are, it'd be something out of the medieval ages.
Yeah,
what this
yeah,
is.
I can't believe that they were ever selected to go next to a place
They're
where
really
children
big.
play. And when the branches fall on them, then they're covered in thorns too, and kids step on them and they get those thorns. I mean, they're really not great, but they're beautiful when they're blossoming.
So once we have once the contractor selected, will they be providing monthly updates to us at our meetings?
Yes, yes. And they may come from the project manager giving that report. She'll be writing regular updates, and sometimes you may get those just ahead of the meeting too, just be emailed out to you. Just depends on where things fall.
Can we make sure that we have time to read them? Because I think that that's a problem. Our meetings are scheduled, so they know when they are.
Okay,
So that we have time to be able to discuss if we have questions.
sure.
And Beverly, a question. We've got the community center and we've got the Prop C, or the community center and the parks. Where do we stand in terms of implementation? Because as far as selling memberships, getting things set up within the community center, that's pretty much off of this plan. When will we be seeing
You
those
will
kinds-
start seeing that in the winter because, for those of you that remember, when we updated the facility rental fees and the pavilion rental fees, staff brought recommendations to you and you vetted them and then sent a recommendation to the city council for fees. We're going to use that same process. We're going to start with the performer that was done that showed that we could afford the community center. And then we'll make a recommendation based on that. And then it'll go to council and they'll approve it. And then once that's approved, then we will start a timeline on and a marketing plan of where we want to go with that. We did put money in the budget this year to hire some outside marketing professionals to assist us with that because it is different than what we normally do in our everyday jobs with promoting activities. So there'll be some work around selecting the name of the community center as well, so that we can do some test marketing or some focus groups on that too.
because I know with the center of Clayton and a lot of these, the marketing almost starts before I mean, the memberships aren't as big a component of this center as it are some of those other projects,
Mhm.
but it does start
It does.
rather quickly.
Right. And what we want to do is tell the story about the community center because it is a community center and it is different than the other centers. So we really, that's what when we did, I did some baseline work trying to figure out how much we needed to budget and then what companies we could do. We talked about what do we want to do? We need to market and sell memberships, but we also need to help people understand what this is because we've never had something like this before. And it's not like the center of Clayton. It's not like the J. It's kind of its own thing. So we really have to tell the story for people to understand what can I do there? What's in it for me? And what is it? You know, what really is it? How is it going to serve the residents? So that has to be developed along with the marketing push for the sales.
Okay.
Beverly, if I may, does the trail layout in phase one take into account at all future connections to the existing nature trail and the
Yes.
future trail? And if
Yes.
so, how does it do that? And what is the thought?
Okay, so when the landscape architects put this in, they looked at the topography and they looked at how to get there. And the slope we have here was really of the biggest challenge. So for those of you who've been at the community center, you know, we have the playground. You can kind of see the outline there to the right of, see, there it is there. And then you can see the very thin lines of topography. That's our steep hill. And I love that hill because that's our sledding hill. So one of the things I asked is, could we minimize impact on that sledding hill? Because I still want kids to be able to sled here. And I got a little bit, they moved it a little bit. I also wanted to save those trees there. You see those 4 trees are being preserved. I really pushed for that. We are losing one. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, right in there, we're losing one. But it's a pine tree and they've reassured me that there will be more trees planted to make up for that. I don't want to joke about it, but we are planting an incredible number of trees. The landscape architects are actually working on to figure out, because it's almost as if for one tree taken down, we're planting 10 trees. So we did have someone ask that at a public meeting. So they are kind of working on that to figure out what is it? What is our ratio of how many trees are going in for each tree removed? Because I think that's important. And I think at our public meeting, people will ask that. So I'm assured that they can still sled in that open area there. And then Ed, to your point, the dashed line goes out there, but that's really part of the protection area that won't be necessarily grading all the way back in there. But that dashed line, the edge of that project, that's kind of where we anticipate the new walking path that will connect to the hiking trail that will connect into the other one, will kind of meander up through that. What I'd really love to see is it to meander all the way up through that, all the way up to the swing set and then connect into the existing sidewalk. So that if someone wanted to hike and not go on the paved trail, they could have that option. So I'd really love to see that. And the landscape architects did not put the trail on here because they really want it to be organic and grow the same way the other one did. So that as construction moves away and as we go through there and as Brian's doing his new plantings, that the trail will kind of appear. And I'm looking at you because I know that you created the other one and we really hope that your artistic eye would really influence where it goes.
So that's where I'm coming to next, is on the proposed path, paved trail. Like right now, the trail I created it just arbitrarily, goes up perpendicular to the trail, no rhyme or reason
Right.
necessarily. It's just.
Oh,
where it
you're
happens to
talking
be.
about that connector. I thought you were talking
Well,
about the
I
connector.
guess
here.
what I'm talking about is that when
Oh.
the existing nature trail, the Sassafras
Yes.
Trail, as you call it,
Yes.
and then the future one that we want on the east side, at some
Yes.
point has to connect to the paved
Yes.
trail.
Yes.
And I guess what I'm asking is there been any thought to like a little bump or a trailhead that makes it obvious? So instead of there just being this perpendicular across, that there might be a pavement might go out a little bit, a
Oh,
couple
I see what you're
feet,
saying.
just so that you can have a nice curve that leads the eye or leads people to it so that they
Yeah.
understand what to do. Like I've had lots of people in the existing one totally walk by it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of hard because of the
because it's
vegetation.
perpendicular. It's not like a. there's-
But if
okay,
the pavement had curved into it just a little bit, it
yeah.
would be more obviously more purposeful. And it would kind of look like it's not an add-on, but it looks like it's a thoughtful
Yeah.
extension of the paved area.
Okay,
And I don't know how much that would cost or where they would go looking at this. I've been kind of sketching here, but
yeah,
I wanted to throw out that thought because it really helps. And we talk about wayfinding with
Yeah.
signs. I think with paths, it's helpful when people, especially when there's a transition
Mhm.
between surfaces, to understand that you are okay to go into this new route, even though it's wood chip and not asphalt.
okay.
Yeah.
That is a great question for the architects. I will ask them. I know we had a lot of conversation about the connector, that phase 2C up in there. Because originally we had there were going to be the dirt steppers that went through there. And those were removed because one of cost and two, when they started doing the engineering in there, they couldn't make it work adequately. But there's been a lot of discussion about ways to extend the walking path out into that connector area so that it is like a hub. So they've talked about having a bench there, doing different things to really draw attention to it, that you can go this way if you want to. So I will bring that conversation back and ask them again.
Yeah, I guess another way to simplify it is that an obvious starting and ending point. And then, yeah, the trail can be organic between those 2 points, but what are the definite
Yeah.
points along the paved area where that should begin and end?
Okay, so what I'm going to write on my note is transition between hiking trail and paved trail. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I have a
Um,
question.
yes.
Actually, two things. I know, some time ago, Mary Kate and I were on the naming fundraising subcommittee, whatever it's called, I don't remember. But it's in hearing you talk about you're replacing one tree with 10, that as we end, marketing this from the beginning, this is an opportunity for us to do this, but it needs to be kind of in place as we go along. So not like wait till we get to a finishing point
Mhm.
and say, oh, hey, did you want to buy a tree? But maybe and we talked about not necessarily plaques, but just people's names. So
Mhm.
if we're really trying to get the community involved in this project and to continue to enhance and also have an opportunity for us to fundraise, it would be an awesome opportunity if we did it now as we're progressing through the plan.
Mhm.
Do you want to buy a tree? $50, and it could just be on the website. These people
Mhm.
donated to the natural tree habitat at the new
Mhm.
or whatever we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
But I think that as we go forward, that's an opportunity when we know that these things are coming. So I didn't know that you're replacing 10 trees for everyone we take down. So if that's the case, and if we're losing 5 trees, we're gonna put in 50,
Mhm.
put a price tag to it and sell it, or maybe it's even more than the 50 that we're selling. If we're really people who really care about the environment and
Mhm.
want to contribute, and then we would have that money as we move along.
Mhm.
And then you're also getting buy-in into the whole entire project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that is on the park work plan. That's something that I would love the park to work on. Absolutely. And I think next month you're doing elections and reassessing on because you've got a new commissioner, everybody reconfirming where they are in the work plan. So I would love that. I would love for the commission to be working on it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it just seems like a natural
Mhm.
transition in a natural way,
Mhm.
especially if you're saying that, this marketing team's gonna come in as we're marketing the whole thing, watch it be built and see how you helped.
Mhm. Well, it's a way to,
bring in the
way to
trees
build
and-
excitement and interest
Exactly.
too, and also defray our costs at the same time. Yeah. And you and Mary Kay did you guys have an initial meeting?
Yeah, we
Or-
had a meeting quite some time ago.
Okay, okay.
Like at the beginning of the summer.
Okay,
Even maybe even before then. It's been a while.
yeah,
But we presented it at one of the meetings. So I think that to try and get away from the plaques and the benches.
yeah,
and the,
absolutely, absolutely.
You know,
The
get
ones
what
we can't
need.
maintain and
Yeah,
then
but-
clutter
but
everything.
get what
Yeah.
we need in the parks, because we're gonna
Mhm.
need benches along
Mhm.
trails. However, it doesn't necessarily have to have a name on it.
Right.
But it could be something that stands as a living memorial, like on the website, these,
Mhm.
you know, these
Yeah.
people contributed to whatever. And then it's not something that we have to worry about replacing plaques and names and, you know, the bench got torn down and
Yeah, absolutely.
somebody's upset with us because we didn't maintain.
Yeah,
Or the
exactly.
tree
'Cause it-
died.
Yeah, or the tree died.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, that was the goal of that committee too, was to figure out what to do with all the plaques that we need to take out of the parks. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So there's programs that we can borrow. We can take pieces.
Yeah.
Right.
So we collected 20 of them and they're in that shared drive that I emailed to everybody. So maybe I just emailed it to you and Mary Kay, but I can send it again because
Okay.
it shows all the other cities'
I remember we
donation
looked
plans.
at it.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can take what we like from other people
Mm-hmm.
and make it all of that. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Do you want me to like just email everybody and set up a meeting? Or do you want to contact Mary Kay or what do you?
I'll
wanna
reach
do?
out to her and see where she
Okay,
is.
okay. That sounds good.
Do you think it's possible to have something like this in place while we're building the community center?
I mean, we can accept money for tree donations anytime, and particularly because we already have the donation fund set up. We have a revenue account that is donations, because right now people are donating benches without us even advertising. People see the new benches, so we already have someone actually just paid for a new bench this week. So you guys have seen those new benches that have the engravings on them, the teak benches. We did that prototype on Harvest, and now more people, as they see them, they're requesting them. So that one's informal. We're not advertising it at all. It's just when people contact us. But we can accept the money. That part is easy. What's hard is having the policies, and this group really needs to recommend those policies, because we need to have policies that right now we take the money and we tell people this bench is a teak bench. It's going to last for a long time, but we cannot guarantee that it will be here in 25 to 30 years. This is a one time, the bench will be there, but there's no upkeep on it. So in the past, when we sold benches or plaques, we didn't tell people that. So there really needs to be, that setting that expectations for the donors that, no, your name is not on it. You're giving this and we're very appreciative, but we can't guarantee that it's going to be there forever and ever. So because we got into trouble in the past, like accepting the pond as a donation, and then it ended up costing us 50 times more what the donation ever was to maintain the pond.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very happy we have it, but it is, it's a huge expense for us. So it's nice if we can really be much more selective on the donations we accept.
So and specifically, I guess what I was referring to, I like the paver idea. Clayton has used it as well to great effect and raise a lot of money. Is that the kind of thing that if out of the subcommittee, this was a recommendation, could that be instituted while, like if we wanted to have an area in the community center outside patio or something where we have those pavers, is that something that, or would even be there appropriate, or is this a bigger thing than
I
what the
think-
time
I
frame we
think
have?
it could be done in some of the parks. I think immediately around the community center, no,
Probably
I think it would be really hard because we're putting concrete in there because of the cost.
Right.
We can't afford to put the pavers there. But in
So-
another park, I think it would be easier. And we're still in schematic design phase, so I think it would work there.
But would the pavers pay for themselves if they're being paid for?
They
as donations?
can, they can,
Because
but
I know that's what they did at the high school.
right, they can, but it's too late in the design process for the community center because the bids are coming in tomorrow. So it
Oh.
would be a change order at this point.
But I think
But for the
With the-
parks, we
with
can
the
absolutely do
parks,
it. For
yeah, with the
Stacy, we can
parks.
absolutely do it. For Stacy or Irvside or any of the other parks, we absolutely could do that. but we have to act quickly. We'd have to have something in place, I would think in the next month.
But I think in order for it to be effective, it has to be at one spot. I can't see, I mean, in order for it to be cost effective.
Correct.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it has to be at one
Yeah.
spot. It can't
And-
be this part, that
Yeah.
part, this part. And then you
Right.
only get 5 people to buy bricks
True,
at
true.
Indian Meadows.
But we do,
You know.
we're gonna have the new pavilion at Stacy would be a natural place for that.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have a restroom building, we're gonna have the new pavilion, we're gonna have a lot of new sidewalks, so that is a great place for it. And we're in the correct timing for that to happen, but we'd have to move on it quickly.
Maxine?
However many years ago, I'm sorry, it is now it escapes my middle-aged brain. We had talked about too, this is pre any of this, was the idea of endowing some of the physical infrastructure that was going in as well. Naming buildings, naming rights to buildings, naming rights to pavilions, et cetera. I mean, this is ancient history, but really, me and Barb talked about it. Is that part of this conversation as
No.
well?
No,
And-
that's a different conversation, and I don't think that we have traction to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the council discussed it, and I think it takes a special magic, and when we started this project,
Yeah,
it was not there.
some expertise
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah, it
right.
just wasn't there for
Yeah,
that.
fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have 2 questions. So one was in regards to this last comment about the benches, or the previous comment about the benches. The one on the bike path from up to Stacy Park from Dealman.
Yeah,
It
at
looks like
Harvest.
it looks like the bench it's at the bottom of Harvest was painted this week or restained
It was,
on Monday, because it said, don't sit on this bench.
really?
And it didn't look like it was a professional job. So I didn't know, did the family just come out and
Oh my
stain it?
gosh, I did not know
And,
that.
okay, so if someone could find out, because if they're really teak or they're really these nice
Yeah.
benches, this is something strange about
And
it.
does it look weird now?
No,
I haven't been on the path
I
since I
saw it
got
on
back.
Monday night and it
Okay.
said, do not sit. And,
Yeah,
Oh.
but,
I walked by-
what?
Yeah, no, along the.
Yeah, I
along the
saw
tra-
you that night walking.
Yeah,
So
I didn't notice it while I was
So
walking. Yeah.
it looks like they stained it, so the color's a little different, but you know how the armrest curve,
yes.
the armrests aren't stained, like the tips of the armrest. So it's like they miss spots. So if it's just a family being, like this was a memory of somebody,
Yeah, yeah,
if the family did it, I think it might need to be professional, or whoever's
Ugh,
doing them in the
yeah,
park might need
yeah.
to tell families that we take care of
Well,
that, or we're not taking, or we're not
very
taking
clear.
care.
So when we show them the bench, we show them the bench when it arrives, and we show them what it looks like when it's weathered 2 years later. And we say, this is what you're getting. It's going to look like this, but it's going to weather to this, and we are not treating it. That's the whole point of having
Okay,
teeth.
well, it was treated this past week.
Oh, no.
So,
All
and,
right.
I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look. It could have been a family project, which is fine.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but,
not though. Because if we have to
Well.
spend money now to fix it.
no, but if we're gonna have, if we're gonna say we're either doing them all or we're not doing them
Yeah,
all,
we're
we
not
need to be
doing them.
consistent.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
precisely.
And then,
Yeah.
when you also brought up using Stacy Park for the bricks, I would personally, my opinion would be, to do it at the community center, because even though we continue to use Stacy Park all the time, and hopefully this arrangement we have will be for many, many, many years to come, it's not our park. I mean, we lease it. And I would rather see it, if people invest in the bricks or something, that it's invested in, like outside our new community center.
I
Yeah.
don't know how,
Well-
I will talk to the project manager, but
Well, let me ask this question though.
No, but it
To that point though, how, maybe I should ask this of Don, when you do the pavers, how do you account for future pavers to be added to an area? Is it just that here's one scope of time and then here are the pavers, we're done and we never add any more to it? Or is there something that you gradually build or
You
an
gradually
area
build.
that
Yeah.
we take care of that's separate from the whole
No.
construction?
So when
No?
when you do pavers, the pavers go in with construction. They have to put the bed down, they have to prepare it for pavers. You have to have all the pavers in. So you may not have sold them all the pavers go in, and if you continue to sell, you pull the brick out, you have it engraved, and you put it in. So, well, you have another brick engraved, you pull one out and you put it in.
That makes sense.
Buy a brick and push grade, they pull it out. If you ever walk down around the biggest ice because the unevenness of the new brick with the brick that they put sinks, they don't maintain it, they don't care. Bushing is actually in some hot water with some triple. When I built it previously, I purposely found one of the only guys who sit on the ground and grade. It's the same that doesn't have to do.
Mhm.
We have the same brick that they use. And take out from our school and something. He does this. He's not a spring chicken. I don't know how long.
Yeah.
So it's great to say, yeah, let's sell all the bricks. And I think what we're great to have that community, that's it. But it has to be a certain type of brick. And a certain type of brick might not be what we want to put a wedding party. Because if it's wet, it does get sick. Because this type of brick that you rate isn't like your home. It's actually, it's not a belt. It's a different type of brick. And it has to have a hardness step. That brick is cast with certain stuff. It's not, it's not rough or textured.
I think too, if anyone ever comes to the new entrance to the high school, they mix the pavers with the sidewalk. So the pavers are actually on the sides of the sidewalk.
On the sides,
So it's
so it's not
the
walked
actual
on.
sidewalk.
Okay.
But, or they kind of come across.
Mhm.
But I also think too, again, going back, if we're doing this now until the end of 2022 to sell bricks or to sell, whatever, you're giving yourself a time frame.
Mhm.
And I can't foresee, a concrete porch versus pavers or a concrete sidewalk versus pavers being that much of a disruption to the plan. Because I don't think the pavers were in the plan when they planned the high school. But it was just an additional fundraising opportunity.
Well,
So
I
if
like
this is
the
something
idea
that
of
we
going down the sides. That
start in
makes
the
it a
next
lot
6
easier.
months.
Yeah.
I like
know.
Keisha's idea of
Yeah.
it being like to trim it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Yeah.
trimming seems way easier for us
Absolutely.
because,
That's something that can come in.
yeah,
Right.
because that's more of a landscaping change, not a concrete change. So we can
Yeah.
still have the concrete and then that as a border, that is much more doable.
But
Much more
again,
doable.
if you're doing that from now to the end of 2022,
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to gauge,
Right.
like, oh, wait, a minute, we got 5,000 bricks, we're out of space. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
know where
Yeah.
you got to go with the bricks. So I just think that kind of lens is where we need to be
Yeah.
looking at this project, how we can, kind of save some costs on what we're spending, even though it was the prop position money, but do something else with that.
Yeah.
Because we've made that up with personal contributions.
Yeah. Because people like to be part of something new,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if I might say, one of the things that I think that is important to do is to create a catalog of these, of what we want. That's the first side. And the second thing is to get some pricing around it. Say somebody wants to give $200 what do
I
you
paid
get?
$300 for a brick.
Well, no, we've paid,
And this is the regular size brick.
no,
The bigger bricks were 6.
yeah, no, well, we have bricks over at the garden
Mhm.
outside the Kemper Center. And I think we paid $300 a brick.
Mhm.
And then we've also purchased them for over there for our grandkids.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think we've got, there's things, but let's, I think it's important to put it first things first is let's figure out what we want.
Mhm.
And then we kind of do the fundraising behind it. So I don't know, do people come to you and say, I want to give $1,000, or do they say, I want to give a bench, or what?
Right
is
now,
it-
the only calls we're getting right now are to donate trees and to donate benches, because we're not promoting anything. Because what we tell people is there's a new program in development. Right now, we can offer a tree with no plaque or a bench, and a bench can either be plain or you can have engraving on it. And that's all we're doing
And
right now.
what's the pricing?
It's about $1,200 for the bench. And a tree is about, depending on the gallon size, is about $100.
And what's our expense on those?
That's a straight cost for the bench. We don't charge installation. We should be, until there's a policy, I can't add on to it. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
can I make a, so do any of our subgroups
yeah,
dealing with this?
Yeah,
Yes.
we have a subgroup, and one of the things as far as the subgroups are concerned is I'm thinking what we were looking at for the last year, of course, COVID's come into it as well. But maybe to say we're going to focus on one or two things as opposed to sort of the whole, because I mean, I know we did a sports thing, we did a fundraising, we've done long-term sustainability. And I know I'm leaving one out, but they haven't gained traction yet. And so I think we need to focus on it. And I think your fundraising, Keisha, is a real important thing to.
Yeah, the fundraising is really important and the fees are really important.
But the one thing I would say too is when we talked about the naming rights is how we got to this conversation was equity. Just because we're kind of a community that's split by economics, and the olive divide.
And the Delmar
I mean, I
divide,
think
yeah.
that it's not necessarily that just because one person can afford to buy a bench and I can't afford to buy a bench, but I'm in the parks every day and I'm really a lover of the environment and that these things are done in a more equitable fashion, which is why we were talking about getting away from the plaques and names. And maybe even if you donate, you just go on the website. So, and maybe you're not buying $100 tree, you're paying a $50 seedling. I don't know what this looks like, but I think we have to also always keep that in mind just because of the way that our community is divided economically. And when we talk about diversity, that is one of the things we need to really think about.
Yeah,
It's not just race.
absolutely. And that's why this commission is charged with developing that policy.
Yeah.
And that's why staff's not doing it. It needs to come from the community. So I wholeheartedly agree.
And I agree with you. We just need to kind of,
Yeah, just
zoning.
kind of get some traction
Yeah.
and go. So I think if we can, we keep putting it off. I know Rob's been working with, working on some of the sports things. And so we just need to keep the momentum going on
Right.
these,
What I'd like to suggest is, I don't want to stop the conversation, but I do think as you're going down the path of talking about prioritizing projects, that would best happen under the item commissioner reports.
Okay.
Yeah. And future agenda items.
Now, other things on the master plan, I know that you.
Yeah, I
you-
wanted to give the Walhalla update.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the playground vendor and the Stacy Park.
Okay. So Don, if you could go to do you want to give it to me? Can you give it to are you looking at my screen right? Is that my screen? Oh. Yeah, can I see that on my screen so I can scroll it? Yeah. Yes. Is that it? Sweet. Okay, so as a,
No, not yet.
no, this just because it's the same. Yeah, I had the exact same screen.
No, I
up.
do. No, I see it. Now I see
Oh,
it.
now you do. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
cool. So what I wanted to do, when we interviewed the playground vendors, it became very clear that one of the big interview questions was what's your process? What are your products? How do you work with the team? And that's one of the reasons we chose All-Inclusive Rec. Another reason is they represent some of the vendors. They have many of the people we interviewed represent multiple vendors. Some only represented one, but All-Inclusive Rec represents several different manufacturers. And one of the ones they have is called Goric. And I was not as familiar with all of their products before we saw the presentation. And they had a suggestion for an indoor playground that really captured the committee's excitement. And I wanted to share that with you. So Walhalla is a playground that was developed by a company in the Netherlands called Carve. And they're an architectural firm that does a lot of beautiful, creative playgrounds. And they're usually one-off custom-made playgrounds. They're given a task in a specific city and to come up with something beautiful, and they do. But they stumbled upon this, and it revolutionized a lot of playground planning and won a lot of design awards. And it was able to be mass produced, not some of their custom jobs. And the whole purpose of this program, it's called Walhalla. The whole purpose of it is to give a lot of play area in a very restricted space. So it's used in a lot of urban areas where space is at a premium or where there's a deficit in parkland. But it also means that then it translates easily into indoor spaces. And you'll kind of see, I thought it was kind of a Viking name, Valhalla, but really it's wall. It really is wall. It's Halla, the wall. So what they did is they took what you kind of see here. You see sort of a diagram here. Here is a soccer field. So here is an 80 square meter playground and a 200 square meter sports field. And what they do is by stacking that play area, you can get an amazing play experience that goes vertically instead of horizontally. So that was the basis for the design of the Walhalla system. And then they made it really beautiful and interactive. So what they did is they made it narrow and they put transparent walls on it. And then they added beautiful waves and climbers. And this is what it looks like. It comes in like 5, 7, or 12 sections. This is a 7 section. So what you're looking at here are climbers, slides. They climb on the inside. They can climb on the outside. There's ways to kind of transport yourself in and around and see through it and also hang out. And they go in through these different portals. And then also there, you can see there's climbing blocks that are on the outside. So we got very excited about this, and it's within our price range. So it comes, you customize it, you add colors. These are some of the climbing handles, and they put, you can put slides on it, fireman pole, fireperson poles, firefighter poles. And this really became the choice for the inside playground. What I'd like to do now is, Dawn, if you could, Dawn, if you could take it back and then go back to the report, I'll show you what this would look like inside the new community center in the indoor playground. So this is a mock-up, so that the room itself is to scale and the room is the actual colors, but remember our rug colors don't translate well on the screen. But the playground structure itself is not the right color. It's just a placeholder. So you can kind of see how it would fit in there. So some of the things we like about it is it gives all these different play options and it brings the kids up, but in a safe way. So they're not going to fall out of the top of it. It also keeps the floor clear so we can still have the walking trail go around. It can still have a lot of children playing in there. It also still allows us space for our imagination playground components that we're going to have in there, the big blue blocks, the big blue building blocks. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think that it's different. There is not one in the Midwest yet. They're on the coast. They're not in the Midwest. There are a lot of them in Europe and a lot of them in Asia, but we will be the first one in the Midwest to have a Walhalla structure. So I think it's unique and pretty exciting. At first glance, if you see it without seeing how vibrant it is with the colors, it looks like a cage. But when you see the colors and you see the kids in it, I think it's really exciting.
And I think it's fair to say there was another company that has done a lot of work that was significantly more expensive. And this really fits the bill. I think if people have seen any of the climbers at the Magic House,
Yeah.
the Lucky
Lucky Climber.
company has done it, but they were significantly more expensive, and both in terms of the initial cost and the installation.
Mhm.
So this, for those of us that have been involved in the process, has really been it has been very interesting. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about with all inclusive. We don't want a cookie cutter playground
Mhm.
and just move something inside.
Yeah. What you can't see here is there is a firefighter pole on the back side of this. And then we're also figuring out if we can have the climbers on the outside. Right now, the flooring we have right now is adequate if we don't have the climbers. If we add the climbers, we need to have fall zone protection, which is a little bit pricier floor. So right now we've asked them to come back with more defined plans for us to really price that and make sure that, because we really want to stay on budget and not exceed the budget.
And I think one other item that we're doing, which it's a design feature, we're talking about the top of the unit in some ways matching the slope of the ceiling.
Right. And that would be a custom feature, so we're not sure we can afford it, but the designers are looking at that for us. And if we can't afford it, there may be an ornament that we can put up there, a flag or some architectural piece that gives that feel that it's following the ceiling, but at a much lower price point. So we're still exploring that.
So that's related to my question. How set in stone is this one particular design? Is this just like a placeholder to kind of give us a pretty good idea?
It's a
Or-
placeholder.
Okay,
yes.
so
Yeah.
in terms of, is the orientation of it, where the slide is, how high, what shape, all of that is
So
still,
the shape is pretty set, the linear shape of
in
it.
terms of the 7,
Yes, the
units,
7
right.
panels, right. We can go to 5. Sometimes they'll do a 5 and offset it with a 7, which I asked specifically about. But what happens with the crowding of the room, what I don't have for you is the overhead view that really helps you see the space around it. The colors have not been set. The components of the waves haven't been set. The position of the slide itself hasn't been set. This is the suggestion from the designers based on the space available, but the rest of it is really going to be refined.
okay, and will that be staff that has input on that, or will this committee or this commission have a chance to look at various iterations?
I believe you'll look at various iterations. Jim sits on this committee, so he
Okay.
sees it as well, and he can report to you at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Or people can also get to me as well as
Yeah.
other folks got questions.
Yeah.
How does this design lend itself to inclusive or parallel play?
Well, I don't know. But none of the indoor play structures that we saw really did, except for
Yeah.
the ones that were just one level. But the imagination playground does. The
Yeah.
imagination playground is 100%. So is everyone familiar with that? The imagination playground?
Was there is there an example of that?
There is.
How that would fit in
has-
here?
If you've been to Magic House, the blue blocks,
Yeah.
that's what that is. That's the
Right.
imagination playground. Is
Okay.
everyone familiar with the blue blocks?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Um,
8 years of. Yeah. But nonetheless, we've had some pretty Lulu snowstorms the last several years. It seems like we should be sensitive to inclusive play indoors as well as out.
Yes, and that is something that we want to be absolutely sensitive to. We did not see anything presented that was, yeah. However, I'm not saying this isn't. We need to find out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a solution, or is there some way we could demonstrate that with this?
Well, that's a question we can also ask the designers is how do you
Yeah.
incorporate
Yeah. I'm not
different
saying it's a great
disabilities?
idea. It's not a great idea, Don. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Up into it. Yeah. Yeah.
Don, if you share my screen, I've got Imagination Playground.
Right.
So we wanted something that was manipulative as well as climbable, and that's the Imagination Playground. So right now, from a program element, we would have some pieces that are available all the time. And then on special days, you bring everything out and the walking trail doesn't walk through that day. Or if we have a special event, and these can be used inside and outside. And I don't know what this video does, so I probably shouldn't have clicked that. Maybe I go over here, but what they do, so this gives you a kind of a better idea. So Imagination Playground, they use one color, and that's really important because that way the kids are focusing on the shape and not competing for the different colors. And it also opens up, it's non-directed play, even though they're preconceived shapes, but everything fits together, everything's the same size, and everything can be put together. So it's a remarkable product. And it's been around for a long time and it has a very good track record. These pieces are all washable. And what they do, where I come from, the Exploratorium, what they do is a couple times a year, they take them outside and they bring out the bubble solution and the kids play with them in the bubbles. And that's also sanitizing and cleaning at the same time. That was pre-COVID. But it's pretty fun because they're completely water safe as well. So there's all sorts of ways you can use them. They even have new ones now where pieces will attach to the wall and the kids can then take it up to the next level and have pieces come out. And there's been remarkable studies done around this with collaboration and cooperation, particularly around kids that have never seen each other before and how they interact. So it's a remarkable play experience. And I'm just thrilled that we can have this in our center. We do have this as a line item currently in the budget. It's something that I requested early on. So the struggle is going to be for Dawn to figure out where we store it. They come in rolling carts, so we will be pushing them in somewhere. Huge rolling carts, yes. So I'm thrilled about this. And what I like about the Walhalla system, it allows this to happen. The other thing we want to have in there is we want to be able to have the story times and the other things that happen in there as well. And that's why we've got, Dawn, can you go back to the design? So if you remember, we have the pathway that walks in there and it has that little elevated area that circles it. That's why you've got the kind of the two-tiered step there so that caregivers can sit there while their kids are playing. But also if it's just the Imagination Playground, the kids can then expand onto all those steps. or the kids can sit on the steps for story time or, use them in different ways. So I'm just love that we have that organic shape and that it allows that flexibility. Some of the play structures we were shown for inside looked like really old McDonald's circa 1985, or they looked like little plastic, like doll houses that just, nothing that really said, hey, this is, a really exciting, fun place to be. So I'm very pleased, even though it's not traditional, it's not what you typically expect to see. I do think about coming in, driving in through the driveway and seeing the bright colors of this through the windows as you're coming in to come to the center. I think it'll pique people's curiosity and they'll really want to get in there and see it.
So I had a question, a couple.
Sure.
What ages are you expecting to be at this indoor playground? What age kids?
Well, the ages with this can be from ambulatory up. So they can go all the way up into preteens in these. When you see them, I don't have it open, but when they're in public parks in other countries and all ages are on them and parents are in there too.
And then my other question was, how many kids can be on a structure?
We've asked that question. They said they get remarkably crowded, particularly in Hong Kong and other areas where they have in high density populations. They said they're strong enough to support more kids than you want in there. So they said they don't see us having an issue with overcrowding it.
And then I guess the number was more towards a safety issue.
Oh, okay.
If in this room, how many kids? What would be the capacity?
I don't know the capacity of this room yet. We've asked the fire department to help us with setting our capacities, but we do have a play attendant budgeted to be in this room when there's large crowds.
Yeah, because I don't love it. That's just my personal opinion. I don't love it. But it doesn't look safe. And to me, when you're talking about these other building blocks, I could just see kids stacking stuff up and climbing on top of this and hanging off of something else. That's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't, I know it's new and innovative and I love innovation, but it just doesn't, I go back to when my young adults now, if they were playground age, would I let them climb on this? It just doesn't seem like something like, oh, that's so exciting. It just looks like metal and a slide.
Well, again,
And I'm just,
yeah, I think the colors really do influence it. It does not.
The orange one looked better.
Yeah,
but
yeah. So you can imagine
I'm
if
still
it's
thinking of
blue,
this inside.
Yeah.
In a like this one has nets on it. So will we?
Oh,
have
yeah, we have the
nets?
same nets.
So
We'll have
is
the same
this,
nets.
is the outside gate metal? So can kids climb on the outside?
They can't climb on the outside unless we put the climbing handholds on. It's designed.
But they
that-
will.
Well, that outside, see the handholds, the handholds allow them. You can see the way they have it narrow
not?
like that. They can't really get their feet in there. They can't get traction for it.
Okay.
And then one of the other things that we've seen with this
Right.
community centers, they've got those kinds of things.
that you
But
can
the
put-
floor has to be softer for the landing.
It can, yes.
Yes.
Yes. If we put the handholds on the outside,
Okay.
we will put in the fall zone protection in the bottom. It comes in tiles and then has a vinyl covering that goes over it. And it has, I think it's a fall height rating of 10 feet, but we will only be, if we add climbers, it'll be 6 feet.
And the top is open.
The top is not open. You see that curve blocks you. You can't get
No,
past
you
that.
can't go to the top.
Yeah. Yeah, and these have been around for many
If you can't-
years and they are very safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to put anything in that I'm
No, I'm not
worried
saying,
about.
it
Yeah.
just doesn't look,
Yeah.
I just remember my kids climbing in the thing in McDonald's and my grandmother and my mother couldn't get them because they were with her. So that type of thing and just thinking,
Yeah.
how are we
Yeah.
gonna manage
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is not a McDonald's.
It's
place
not a McDonald's,
second.
but it's safer than City Museum. Because you
Yeah.
can see them. Yeah, well, that's true. Pretty much anything's safer than City Museum.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Beverly?
Yes.
Are there other questions of Beverly on this process? One of the things that I will say that I am doing, I'm spending a fair amount of time. I had 4 meetings yesterday on various aspects of this and trying to represent some of the concerns that people have. So we will try to do a job of getting information updates to the two folks. And at this stage, we're finishing schematic design. We haven't really gone into design development yet as far as the parks are concerned. Now, we clearly are way down the road with the community center. And so I, doing as a representative at this point, will try to be more open and communicating things to folks on a regular basis. So is that master plan development? Okay. Commissioner reports.
Hang on, are you gonna give an update on Stacy Park Pavilion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
we sent the feedback. It went to council. Council rejected all the plans. So we've put it back to the architects and we're waiting for their response. Yeah, the city council did not like the roof line that the park commission recommended. I apologize. I completely forgot to put that in the update. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that everything is on the table right now in terms of that, whether it be a prefab unit, whether it be design, there's a whole series of things out there, and we've tasked the architects to come up with something that's a lot more interesting.
Do we have a timeline when they're gonna come back to us?
No. Sure.
Yes.
So what happened was when they brought it, the 3, when you guys had narrowed it down to 3 choices, and then you said out of the 3, which one you preferred. What happened was that night, there was like an aha moment amongst the city council when we realized that these were prefabbed. And if they're prefabbed, then why did we only look at, why had we had it narrowed down? Why didn't they give us a broader range? And no one was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This has got to be it. So instead of just choosing out of the 3 and like settling for something, we didn't want to settle since we're going to have this for years and years to come. I mean, look how long the pavilion that's there now has been there. So that's when we asked them to go back to the drawing board. So it wasn't that we didn't appreciate your input. It was just, we think that there's more choices out there.
So can I add to that, please? I think the thing that was frustrating for me about that process was at least I didn't hear that we had an option to say no to all of them. See, when you're told that you want input and you're given certain number of options and you're told to weigh the pros and cons and then come up with one and spend a lot of time and come to meetings and then not be asked to speak at that point, that's a little frustrating because honestly, I agree with the council. If
Yeah.
I had that, but that wasn't an option given to me.
Yeah.
I was led to believe that we had these options. Which one is the one? We haggled it, we talked about it, and then we picked it. I didn't know it was an option to say we didn't want these. So I
I
think,
didn't either. I agree with
right,
you.
no, I understand.
I didn't either.
So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, just for the record, that if we want people to put energy and we want them to volunteer their time, let's honor it by making sure we understand what the options are. Now, I know council can do a lot of things that commissions can't. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to know, because I would have voted the same way. I would have said, you know what, there's got to be other options. There's got to be something else here, because the 3 that were given were not as diverse and as interesting
Mhm.
as I originally had
Yeah.
hoped they would be, especially for the huge price tag.
Yes.
I had no idea that $500,000 doesn't buy anything. is
Yeah.
what I thought. I looked at it and I go, my God, that's more
Yeah.
than my house. How can this pavilion
I know,
not
I
look
agree.
any
I
more interesting?
agree.
But so Ed, I have to tell you, that's why I said we had an aha moment, because I saw the choices going to the council, because I was not in town when you guys met. And I saw them thinking these were something that had been drawn up, that they were supposed to be unique, and that these were the three choices they came back to us with. I did not understand, I think you were at that meeting even,
Mhm, I was.
that till
Sue
halfway.
and I were both there.
I think it was halfway through it, that we realized, I heard them say prefabricated, and I went like, wait, I turned to Missy and I'm like, they're prefab, it's like we started like realizing during the meeting
Yeah,
that there were more choices out there.
and to be fair, the pavilion does not cost $500,000. The pavilion is about
the line
90,
item.
between 90 and 120,000. It's the restrooms, it's the pavement, it's the water lines, the plumbing, all of that. Everything.
But we don't take your time for granted at all.
No.
We really don't.
No, staff felt the same way. I mean, we were given three options. We pushed back and, I brought it to you in good faith. That this is,
Sure. No,
this is what
and
our
I'm
choices
sorry if I
were.
can come across
And we
as I'm.
sent it to you in good faith.
I appreciate it. I'm just saying that.
And the
that's-
council can absolutely do that. That's why they're the council and that's why that's why staff didn't solely make the decision. We brought it to you and we brought it to the council. So I'm appreciative of that. We'll get a better product in the end, but it's put us back and we're frustrated and we're hoping we see something better.
And I think the other ha-ha moment from this is that the architects work for us, not the other way around. And a lot of times architects can be fairly, how shall I say this nicely? Anyway, that they feel like that we're simply amateurs looking on to things. And so we need to realize that form follows function and that we want what we need to have. And therefore,
Yeah.
we need to move
Yeah.
forward for
So
it. And-
they've gotten the message.
Yes,
So-
we have, and this is not the only issue that we have. We don't need to go into architectural issues, but this is not the only one that we've had at this point. And I think I've seen a complete turnaround in terms of how they're looking at this project.
But we do have a beautiful building. I am very pleased. We push back a lot. We have a beautiful building. It's with what we can afford. It's what we can maintain and it's what we've, our
Right.
commitment to the public. So I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah.
And Stacy Park, we had it was a different team working on it from the same company. So we have to learn how to work with that team and we're still going to have a good product there too. And it's still going to be within budget.
Yeah.
It's just not as quickly as I want it to be.
We have to be conscious of the fact of the plain brown wrapper that's sitting in Stacy Park right now.
Oh, I know.
and Where it came from. I mean, it would be interesting if we kind of said, there's two ways to think about it, right? Is we'll know it when we see it. Well, when is that going to happen? And then, well, here are some guidelines. Here are some things we'd like to see
Right.
in
Right.
this building.
Right.
One of the things might be interesting is something that kind of smacks of
And
of
also.
the community center proper too. I
Yeah.
mean, that it kind of all goes together, right? Maybe a design plan that we should promote. Or they should all look completely different from one another.
So
That's
we
another-
had the basis of design in our big design
Yeah.
guideline for the parks, and that's what they pulled from.
Yeah,
And they're really,
fair enough.
there really wasn't a lot of imagination. They just took exactly what was in there
And quite frankly, did not do a lot of extra work with it.
no.
Well,
And there was some catalog shopping.
that's
so-
Too bad.
Anyway, I think we're moving along. Are there other questions on the park master plan? The next item is commissioner reports. I know that we've alluded to a lot of items tonight. I don't know that anyone, I know that Rob has worked with Don and has put together some ideas and PowerPoint, but given the hour, I think we will make sure that there's the time
If I could just get
Sure.
2 minutes, please. Yeah, so that this is still a work in progress, but what we wanted to do is just level set and inform the commission on the breadth and depth of the park commission, the sports organization's capabilities right now. You know, talk about everyone get to know Don LaChance a little bit better, get to know Corey Shovik a little bit better, get to understand how our sports organization fits within the greater St. Louis MSA's sports ecosystem, and what are the opportunities there for our sports organization to take advantage of. Right now we're in the middle of our soccer program. It gets underway here. Our game season gets underway in September. We've taken the next step of competing, going head to head against our other area sports and rec programs by setting our fees commensurate with other sports programs here in the area. We want to take that another level up. And so what that's going to give us the ability to do is is put more money towards marketing, more money towards volunteer development in terms of coaching, locating and empowering field observers to deal with issue resolution, et cetera. These are some of the things we've learned along the way that we know we have to change and are changing with our improved revenue base. With that, we've also got some gaps that we want to communicate to the commission that we believe we've got people on the commission here that can help us in terms of establishing partnerships across the St. Louis area, and quite poignantly with athletic directors and facilities directors and various other partner academic and parks and recs organizations across the region. So I'd like to get that on the agenda for next commission meeting and give Don and Corey a chance to shine. So in front of the commission and really give you an understanding of what's going on there.
Okay.
So did I say it? All right.
And then other commissioners, Keisha, I would say if we can get some things going with memorials, I'm willing to help with that as well, because I think also cataloging what we have and then kind of moving forward. But if we could maybe consider that a priority and so forth, and maybe hear something back at the September meeting, we can go from there. And other items from the commissioners' reports.
Under the upcoming date of importance, I know it starts September 22nd. Yes. Correct. Yes. Correct. Correct.
And I will say that I will not be at that meeting or at the October meeting because of some travel that I'm going to be doing. And that was one other question that I was having, because our vice chair resigned from the commission. And so we need to, I don't know whether I as chair can appoint someone to chair those two meetings that I will miss, or whether how we need to handle that.
Yeah, because the next month, you're supposed to have elections.
Right.
So we can hold elections next month. And I think, I don't know the process for who runs the meeting with, in the absence of the chair, but I'll bet
Can we just-
someone. Correct.
Can we
Yeah, I think
just
that's
call
fine for you to appoint someone.
I just call the question.
Well, I'm thinking of the retired guys here. There's one other retired person on the commission at this point. I was on it. Ed, would you be able to?
Oh, they're retired.
You'd be able to.
Yeah,
chair that- those.
Can I'd like to just, I'd like to nominate Rich.
Oh, okay. do you have the time?
Well, just the next meeting, because it's elections at the next meeting.
My second.
All in favor?
Well, had she,
Oh,
and
okay, wait,
Sue,
wait.
and did you accept?
Do you accept?
Steely look in your eye, lady.
Okay. Okay.
Keisha?
Keisha, would you like?
I may possibly be out of town, so I will decline.
We may not have a quorum. Oh,
Be able to do any business.
Okay.
Are you gonna be in by that time?
he will be in.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I don't
Yeah.
count. Well, I wouldn't count Mary Kay. I don't count, but I did talk to Mary Kay tonight. She's gonna Friday night.
pardon me? There's one on the 20. The
It's
next
the 22nd. It's normally would be the
Everything's not
18th, but it's
okay.
Yom
It
Kippur.
would,
so
it
we
would,
pushed
it would be the 15th
15th, sorry.
and, but it got moved to the 20. It's gonna be the 22nd. And then the October one would be on the 20th.
So I'll do it.
Okay, yay, okay. For both dates?
What's the October date?
Well, it depends on who's elected chair, Jim.
Oh, yeah, okay. And if I'm out of town, I'm out, I'm off.
You can't vote for yourself. Well, you could zoom in. Zooming with your face is allowed to vote, so you could zoom in if you want to.
Well, we'll see. I don't know whether my spouse will be too excited about me zooming in from.
Well, I don't know. The city manager zoomed in from Amsterdam, so it
Yeah,
was
but
2
but
a.m.
she gets paid.
Fair
So, okay. So Keisha is going, let's see. No, we haven't adjourned yet, folks.
This end is too excited.
Yeah. Let's see, there was one other item.
Oh, since-
Tomorrow is e-waste. Do you have all the help that you need for that?
We could always, if someone's interested in being out there, you're welcome to come. Corey, Megan, and myself will be out there from 4 to 7, along with 3 delightful police officers. It'll be at the community center, and we're doing it on Thursday night because when we do it on Saturdays, we have several families that can't participate. So we moved it to a Thursday night.
When Keisha posts it tomorrow as a reminder, have her put in big bold letters that it's been moved to the community center.
You mean
Because I had
Kiana?
someone today, yeah, Kiana, because
Yeah.
I had someone today think it was at Stacy.
Well, we've posted it many times
I
with the
know.
new date. We will do it again tomorrow, and we've got a sign going up at Stacy that says that it's at the community center.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
The other thing that's not on this calendar is, since the agenda was posted, we selected the Boo Bash date. Boo Bash had to move to Stacy Park because of the construction, and that will now be on October. Rud.
15.
That is correct. I will send that out. Yes, it's Friday, October 15th, and it will feature a haunted trail in Stacy Park.
Okay. Okay, are there other,
We absolutely will need people to volunteer. We don't have the roles yet, but we are coming to this commission.
and as I've reviewed city ordinances and code and so forth, one of our main functions is to be ambassadors for the parks. So everyone that's there, I'm being sort of hypocritical because I won't be there. But yes. Party in the park is on the 10th.
Will you be at parties in the park?
Yes, I will be.
Yay. Okay.
So is there other business to come before the commission?
No.
Do I hear a motion for adjournment? Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye, opposed?
And
Thank you all.
And at Tuesday night's meeting is when Travis will be voted in,
Yes.
Okay.
this coming Tuesday.
Yes.
So thank you for coming.
Okay.
I had it before you even